The stars at the edge of the galaxy were cold and distant. Admiral Ketharan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and watched them through the massive viewing screen. Behind him, 200 warships of the Velthari Empire followed in perfect formation. They were the finest fleet ever assembled. They had conquered worlds without number. They had crushed species that dared to resist. Today, they would claim new territory for the Empire. "Admiral," said Commander Scylla, stepping forward with a data tablet in her clawed hands. Her scales were a deep blue, marking her as one of the old bloodlines. "We are entering the region known as the Scar." Ketharan turned his head slightly. His golden eyes reflected the starlight. "I know what it is called. Tell me something useful." Scylla pressed a button on her tablet. A holographic map appeared in the air between them. It showed a vast stretch of space filled with dead systems and empty worlds. "The Scar has been abandoned for over 800 cycles. Our records say a species once lived here. They called themselves humans." "Humans," Ketharan repeated the word slowly. It felt strange on his tongue. "I have heard this name in old stories. They destroyed themselves, yes? That is what the archives say." Scylla pulled up ancient images on her tablet. They showed a blue and green world, covered in water and clouds. Their homeworld was called Earth. They were a young species, barely capable of reaching their own moon when they were first discovered. But they advanced quickly. Too quickly, some said. Ketharan made a sound of amusement. "And then?" "Civil war. Their planet burned. The species died." Scylla put the tablet down. "They've been listed as extinct for 800 cycles. The Scar is all that remains of their territory." The Admiral looked back at the viewing screen. The stars here seemed darker somehow, fewer, as if the light itself was afraid to enter this place. He pushed the thought away. He was Velthari. He feared nothing. "A dead species in a dead region," he said. "We will plant our flag on their bones and claim their worlds for the Empire. There is nothing here that can stop us." The bridge crew worked in silence. Officers monitored their stations. Pilots kept the great ship on course. Everything was as it should be. The Velthari had done this 100 times before. They would do it 100 times again. But then the communication officer raised his head. His face was pale. "Admiral," he said, his voice uncertain, "we are receiving a transmission." Ketharan frowned. "From where?" "There is nothing out here." "I do not know, sir. The signal is old. Very old. But it is repeating on all frequencies." The officer looked at his screen as if he did not believe what he saw. "It is in a language our archives have not heard in 800 cycles." The bridge fell silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Every eye turned to the communication station. "Play it," Ketharan ordered. The speakers crackled. Static filled the air. And then a voice spoke. It was flat and cold, without emotion. The words were alien, harsh, and rough. But the ship's translation system worked quickly, and soon the meaning became clear. "Do not enter. You will not be warned again." The message ended. The static faded. Silence returned to the bridge. Commander Scylla stepped closer to the Admiral. Her voice was low. "Sir, that language. The computer confirms it. That was human." "Impossible," Ketharan said. But even as he spoke, he felt something cold move through his chest. "They are extinct. They have been dead for centuries." "The message is repeating," the communication officer said. "It has been repeating for a very long time. Perhaps it is automated. A warning left behind by those who died." Ketharan nodded slowly. Yes, that made sense. A ghost signal from a dead world. Nothing more. He straightened his back and placed his hands behind him. "Ignore it," he commanded. "The humans are dust and memory. Whatever machine sends this message will be dust soon as well. Continue forward. We will reach the first planet by the next cycle." The officers returned to their work. The fleet moved deeper into the scar, but Commander Scylla did not move. She stood beside the Admiral, her eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. "Sir," she said quietly, so only he could hear, "I have studied many species in my time. I have read the records of those we conquered and those who fell before we reached them. But I have never seen a region like this." "What do you mean?" "The scar is empty. Completely empty. No debris, no signals, no life signs. 800 cycles is a long time, but space should hold some trace of what once lived here." She paused. "Unless someone cleaned it. Unless someone wanted it to look abandoned." Catharan looked at her. For a moment, just a moment, he felt doubt. Then he pushed it away. "You are tired, Commander. Go rest. We have a long campaign ahead of us." Scylla nodded and turned to leave. But at the door, she stopped and looked back. "The warning said we would not be warned again," she said. "That means whoever sent it expected us to come. They knew we would not listen." She left the bridge. Catharan stood alone, watching the stars. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, something was waiting. He was sure it was nothing. He was sure the humans were dead, but the cold feeling in his chest would not go away. 3 cycles passed. The fleet moved deeper into the scar, and the darkness grew thicker around them. The stars here were old and dying. Their light was weak, barely enough to see by. It felt like sailing through a tomb. Commander Scylla stood at her station, watching the sensor screens. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones, even if she could not name it. The emptiness of this place was not natural. It was too perfect, too complete. "Commander," said a young officer beside her, "the forward scouts have found something." Scylla leaned closer to the screen. The image showed a field of debris floating in space. At first, she thought it was asteroids. Then she looked closer and felt her blood turn cold. They were ships. Hundreds of ships, broken and burned, drifting in the void like dead leaves on a black ocean. "Admiral," she called out, "you need to see this." Catharan walked over, his heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. He looked at the screen for a long moment. His face showed nothing, but Scylla saw his jaw tighten. "Wreckage," he said. "From the human civil war, no doubt. We expected to find such things. Look closer, sir." Scylla adjusted the image. "Those ships on the left side. They are human design, yes. But the ships on the right side are different. The computer does not recognize them. They belong to no species in our records." Catharan studied the image. The unknown ships were larger than the human vessels. They had strange shapes, curved and organic, like sea creatures frozen in metal. They were just as destroyed as the human ships, just as dead. "Someone fought the humans here," Scylla said. "Someone we do not know. And it looks like both sides lost." "Ancient history," the Admiral replied. "It does not concern us." But as the fleet passed through the graveyard, more wreckage appeared. Different kinds of ships, different ages. Some looked centuries old. Others looked much newer. The destruction was not from one battle. It was from many battles, spread across hundreds of years. Something had been killing ships in this region for a very long time. "Admiral," the sensor officer spoke up. His voice was shaking. "I am detecting movement ahead." "What kind of movement?" "I cannot tell, sir. Ships appear on my screen for a moment, then vanish. They move too fast for our sensors to track." The officer looked up, fear in his eyes. "They are not our ships." Catharan walked to the main viewing screen. He stared into the darkness. "Send the Blade of Veth ahead. Tell Captain Morak to investigate and report." The order was given. A small, fast ship broke formation and flew toward the unknown signals. The bridge crew watched in silence as it grew smaller and smaller on their screens, until it was just a tiny dot of light in the endless black. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The Blade of Veth did not respond to communication attempts. Its signal grew weaker. "We have lost contact," the communication officer said. "The ship is not responding." Catharan's hands curled into fists. "Keep trying." Another hour passed. Then, suddenly, a burst of static exploded from the speakers. The communication officer jumped back in his seat. A transmission was coming through, broken and distorted. "This is the Blade of Veth," a voice screamed through the noise. "They came out of nowhere. Our weapons do nothing. They are cutting through the hull." "They are," the voice stopped. For a moment, there was only static. Then another sound came through. It was screaming. Many voices screaming at once, filled with terror beyond words. The sound lasted for 5 seconds. Then silence. The bridge was frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the ship's engines. Commander Scylla felt her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard soldiers die before. She had heard the sounds of battle. But she had never heard anything like that. Those were not the screams of warriors. Those were the screams of prey. "Admiral," she whispered, "we should leave this place. Now, while we still can." Catharan did not answer. He was staring at the viewing screen. His golden eyes were wide. His face had lost its color, because lights were appearing in the darkness ahead. 1 at first, then 10, then 100, then more than Scylla could count. They blinked into existence like cold stars waking from sleep, spreading across the void in perfect formation. Ships, countless ships, waiting. The communication system activated on its own. A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect Velthari, without accent, without emotion. Every word was clear as ice. "You were warned." Catharan opened his mouth to give an order, but no sound came out. For the first time in his long life, the Admiral of the Velthari Empire had nothing to say. The lights in the darkness began to move. They were coming, and Scylla knew with terrible certainty that the humans were not extinct. They had never been extinct. They had been waiting. The human ships were black as the void itself. They moved through space like shadows, fast and silent, cutting through the darkness without effort. Scylla counted 40 of them against the Empire's 200. She thought, for just a moment, that they had a chance. She was wrong. "All ships, open fire!" Admiral Catharan roared. His voice filled every vessel in the fleet. "Destroy them!" 200 warships unleashed their weapons at once. The sky lit up with plasma beams and missile trails. It was the most powerful attack the Velthari had ever launched. It should have turned the human fleet to Ashdod. It did nothing. The plasma beams bent around the human ships as if pushed aside by an invisible hand. The missiles exploded before they got close, destroyed by weapons too fast to see. The human vessels did not even slow down. Then they fired back. Scylla had never seen weapons like this. Beams of white light cut through Velthari shields like they were made of paper. Entire warships broke apart in seconds, their hulls glowing red before they exploded. There was no warning, no time to react. One moment a ship was there. The next moment it was fire and debris. "Our shields are not working." An officer screamed. "Their weapons go right through." "Impossible." Catharan slammed his fist on the console. "Those shields have stopped 1,000 attacks." "Nothing can." The ship shook violently. Alarms filled the air. The lights flickered and went dark, then came back with a red emergency glow. "Direct hit to the lower decks," the damage officer reported. "We have lost engine power on the port side." Shields are failing. Scylla grabbed her console to stay on her feet. Around her, officers were shouting, running, trying to do something, anything. But there was nothing to do. The human ships were everywhere at once. They moved together like a single mind, knowing exactly where to strike, exactly when to turn. The Valkyrie fleet was falling apart, in the chaos. Scylla remembered something. The old archives. The classified files that only commanders could access. She pulled them up on her personal tablet, searching for anything about the humans. Anything that could explain this nightmare. What she found made her stop breathing. The files were marked with the highest security level. They had been sealed for 800 years. And they told a very different story than the one she had been taught. The humans had not destroyed themselves. They had been attacked. 800 years ago, a coalition of species had looked at the young human race and felt fear. The humans learned too fast. They grew too strong. In just a few generations, they had gone from primitive creatures to space travelers. The coalition decided they could not be allowed to continue, so they burned Earth. Fleets from a dozen species surrounded the human homeworld and fired until the oceans boiled and the sky turned to ash. Billions died in a single day. The humans were meant to be erased from history, but some survived. A few ships escaped into the scar, carrying the last of their kind. And there, in the darkness at the edge of the galaxy, they rebuilt. They hid. They watched. They learned from every species that came to finish them off. For 800 years, they waited. And they prepared. "Admiral!" Scylla shouted over the noise. "Admiral, you need to see this. The humans were not destroyed by civil war. They were attacked, murdered. And the species that did it, they are all gone now. Absorbed into the Empire or wiped out. We inherited their crime." Cataran turned to look at her. His face was covered in dust and blood from a wound on his head. For a moment, he looked like an old man instead of a conqueror. "What are you saying?" "I am saying we cannot win this fight. They have had 800 years to prepare for this moment. They know everything about us. Our weapons, our tactics, our weaknesses. They have been studying us all along." Another explosion rocked the ship. The viewing screen cracked. Through the broken glass, Scylla could see the battle outside. Half the Valkyrie fleet was gone. The rest was scattered, burning, trying to flee. "Order a full retreat." Catharan commanded. "All ships fall back. Get us out of here." But the human ships had already moved to surround them. There was nowhere to run. The trap had closed. The communication system activated. A new face appeared on the damaged screen. It was a human, old with gray hair and deep lines on her face. Her skin was brown, her eyes dark and calm. She wore a simple uniform without decoration. Behind her, Scylla could see a bridge filled with other humans, all watching in silence. "I am Admiral Yara Chun," the human said. Her voice was steady, without anger or hate. "Last of the Earthborn, commander of the human defense fleet." Catharan stepped forward. "This is madness. You are supposed to be dead. All of you. We were supposed to be, yes." Admiral Chun tilted her head slightly. "But we are very hard to kill. Your predecessors learned that lesson. Now you will learn it too. What do you want? Your empire has two choices." Chun held up 2 fingers. "Listen well, Admiral. I will not repeat them." The bridge fell silent. The fires outside seemed to dim. Every eye was on the human woman's face. Scylla realized she was holding her breath. The fate of 200 ships hung on what came next. Admiral Chun's face filled the broken screen. She spoke slowly, making sure every word was understood. "Choice 1. Unconditional surrender. Your fleet powers down its weapons and submits to our inspection. You will then broadcast a message to your empire, admitting that humanity survives. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them the truth about what was done to Earth 800 years ago. Ketharan's claws dug into his palms. And the second choice? Annihilation. Chem's expression did not change. We destroy every ship in your fleet. No survivors. No messages home. Your empire will send more ships to find out what happened. We will destroy them too. And we will keep destroying them until they stop coming, or until there is no empire left. The bridge was silent. Scylla looked around at the officers. She saw fear in every face. These were warriors who had conquered worlds, and now they looked like frightened children. You cannot do this, Ketharan said. His voice was rough. The Empire has thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. You are only 40 vessels in a forgotten corner of space. You will lose eventually. Admiral Chun smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad. We have been preparing for this war for 800 years. We have weapons you cannot imagine, technologies you cannot understand, and we have something your empire will never have. What is that? Patience. Chun leaned forward. We do not need to conquer you. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We only need to survive. And we are very, very good at surviving. Ketharan turned away from the screen. His mind was racing. He could not accept this. He could not surrender to creatures that were supposed to be extinct. The shame would destroy him. His family name would be cursed forever. He made a secret signal to his remaining captains. A small gesture hidden from the screen. Attack, it said. One final charge. Kill their commander and break free. 12 ships responded. They fired their engines and flew straight at the human flagship, weapons blazing. Missiles streaked through the void. Plasma beams burned bright against the darkness. Scylla watched in horror. Admiral, no. You will kill us all. But the attack never reached its target. The human ships moved with impossible speed. Point defense weapons destroyed every missile in mid-flight. Strange beams of light struck the attacking ships, and they went dark. Their weapons stopped. Their engines died. They drifted in space, powerless but intact. Not one Valkyrie died. The humans had disabled them without killing a single crew member. Chun's voice came through the speakers again. That was your free lesson, Admiral. We could have destroyed those ships. We chose not to. Do you understand now? Ketharan stared at the screen. His hands were shaking. Why? He whispered. Why show mercy? We tried to kill you. Your people were burned alive. Your world was destroyed. Why do you not hate us? For a moment, Chun was silent. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Because we remember what it felt like to be the ones facing extinction. We remember begging for mercy that never came. We remember watching our children die and knowing no one would help us. She paused. We will not become what tried to erase us. We are better than that. We have to be. Scylla felt tears forming in her eyes. She had served the Empire her whole life. She had believed they were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. But in this moment, standing before a species that had every reason to hate them, she saw the truth. The humans were not monsters. The Valkyrie were. She walked forward and stood beside Ketharan. Admiral, she said quietly, we have lost. But we do not have to lose everything. Surrender. Tell the truth. Let our people learn from this. Ketharan looked at her. The fire had gone out of his eyes. He looked old and broken. They will call me a coward. A traitor. My name will be forgotten. Or you will be remembered as the admiral who saved 200 ships and brought the truth home. Scylla placed her hand on his arm. You can still choose what kind of ending this is. For a long moment, Ketharan did not move. The bridge waited in silence. The human ships waited in the darkness. Then, slowly, the admiral reached up and removed the golden sash from his shoulder, the symbol of his rank, the pride of his bloodline. He held it in his hands and looked at it one last time. "Open a channel to the human flagship," he said. His voice was empty. "Tell Admiral Chun that the Veltri fleet surrenders." Unconditionally, he dropped the sash on the floor and prepared the broadcast equipment. "The galaxy is going to hear the truth." On the screen, Admiral Chun nodded once. Her face showed no triumph, no satisfaction, only a deep and ancient weariness. "A wise choice, Admiral," she said. "Perhaps the wisest your empire has ever made." The guns fell silent. The fires died. And in the darkness of the scar, two species that should have been enemies began to speak instead of fight. The broadcast reached the Veltri throne world 3 weeks later. It played on every screen, in every city, in every home. Admiral Catharan's face appeared before billions of eyes, and he told them the truth. He told them about the humans, about Earth, about the coalition that had tried to commit murder on a scale beyond imagining. He told them that the species they had called extinct for 800 years was alive, powerful, and watching. He told them the Veltri Empire had been built on a lie. The reaction was chaos. The Emperor demanded answers. Generals argued with politicians. Some called Catharan a coward who had invented stories to excuse his defeat. Others looked at the evidence and felt something they had never felt before: shame. But the biggest change happened among the other species. Those who had been conquered by the Empire. Those who lived under Veltri rule with no hope of freedom. They heard the broadcast, and they began to whisper. If the humans could survive, maybe they could too. Rebellions sparked on a dozen worlds. The Empire tried to crush them, but the old confidence was gone. Every time a Veltri fleet moved to punish a rebel world, they looked over their shoulders. They wondered if human ships were watching from the darkness. They wondered if they would be next. Commander Scylla did not return to her military post. Instead, she requested permission to lead a diplomatic mission to the Scar. The Empire agreed, desperate for any way to end the crisis. She traveled alone in a small ship with no weapons, flying into the territory of the species that had destroyed her fleet. The human flagship was called the Lazarus. Scylla did not know what the name meant, but she liked the sound of it. Strong and strange, like the humans themselves. Admiral Chun met her at the docking bay. The old human woman walked with a cane now, her body tired from centuries of struggle. But her eyes were still sharp, still clear. "Welcome aboard, Commander," Chun said. "You are the first Veltri to set foot on a human ship in 800 years. Scylla bowed her head. "I am honored. And afraid, if I am honest. Fear is honest. I respect that." Chun began to walk, and Scylla followed. "Come, let me show you who we are." They walked through the ship, and Scylla saw things she had never imagined. Gardens filled with green plants and flowers. Children running through corridors, laughing and playing. Art on the walls, paintings and sculptures made by human hands. Music playing softly in common areas where families gathered to eat together. These were not the monsters of her nightmares. These were not conquerors or destroyers. These were people who had lost everything and built something beautiful from the ashes. "I do not understand," Scylla said as they walked. "You have weapons that could destroy us. Technology beyond anything we have seen. Why do you live like this? Why not take what is yours?" Chun stopped beside a window that looked out into space. In the distance, Scylla could see the lights of a human city built into an asteroid. Thousands of people lived there, in a place that should have been impossible. "When Earth burned," Chun said, "we lost 9 billion people in one day. Mothers, fathers, children, artists and scientists and farmers and dreamers. All gone in fire and ash. She turned to look at Scylla. We could have become like those who did this to us. We could have built an empire of revenge, dedicated to making the galaxy suffer as we suffered. But you did not. No. Chun shook her head slowly. Because then they would have won. Not by killing us, but by making us into them. We decided that the best revenge was to survive, to grow, to become something better than anyone believed we could be. Scylla thought about the Empire, the wars, the conquered species, the belief that strength meant domination. She had lived her whole life inside that system, never questioning it. Now she saw how small it was, how empty. What do you want from us? She asked. What do the humans want from the galaxy? Chun smiled. We want to be remembered. We want the truth to be told. And we want to help any species that faces what we faced. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small device. A data core glowing softly with blue light. This contains everything. Our history, our music, our art, our stories of loss and hope. It is a gift. Scylla took the device carefully. It was warm in her hands. Why give this to us? We do not deserve it. Perhaps not. But you can earn it. Chun placed her old hand on Scylla's shoulder. Go home, Commander. Share what you have learned. Help your people become something new. Something better. 1 week later, Scylla stood before the Veltari Council and presented the data core. She told them about the human ships and the human children. She told them about Admiral Chun, who had every reason to hate and chose to hope instead. She told them that the galaxy was changing, and the Empire could change with it or be left behind. Not everyone listened. Not everyone believed. But some did, and that was enough to begin. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Species who had never heard of Earth learned the name for the first time. They learned about the blue world that burned and the people who refused to die. They learned that somewhere in the darkness, there was a fleet that protected the lost and the forgotten dot and deepened the scar. The human fleet powered down its weapons. The borders opened. Ships from 100 worlds began to arrive, carrying traders and diplomats and curious travelers who wanted to see the impossible for themselves. Admiral Chun watched them come from the bridge of the Lazarus. She was tired. She had been tired for a very long time. But for the first time in 800 years, she felt something new. Hope. Humanity had returned. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as neighbors at last. The stars at the edge of the galaxy were still cold and distant, but they were no longer empty. They were home.